Let's finish up the chapter by looking at exchange and specialization. In the previous video, actually looked at the types of economic system. We looked at the free market economy. Then we looked at the planned economy and the mixed, right? So, and the traditional as well. We looked at the features, the disadvantages, and the advantages. Now let's finish up the first chapter by looking at exchange and specializations. So these are two concepts that we have to be familiar with when it comes to economics, right? So let's first look at exchange value. Exchange value. How does exchange value actually arise, right? So when resources are scarce, they have to be an exchange value, also known as economic value, right? This is only coming in because goods and services are scarce, right? So because of that, when people are exchanging, they will have or they are attach a value to the goods that they are exchanging them for, right? So that's to do with exchange. For example, that is why gold is expensive because it is so scarce, right? A thing that is readily available does not have exchange value or has less exchange value. Imagine air is readily available. It's not scarce, right? For that reason, right? You do not pay for air, right? Or you do not pay for oxygen, right? Because it is not scarce, right? So exchange value only arises where there is that scarcity associated with it, right? So originally exchange was made by barter, right? That's a long time ago, right? But over the years, we have developed the money system. So what is barter trade? What is barter trade? Which was basically the origin of exchange, right? What is a barter trade? So this is the type of trading which involves goods for goods, right? So you're exchanging goods for other goods. For example, one needs matches, right? So one needs matchsticks, right? Matchsticks. One needs sorry, this one needs one needs matchstick but has wood. This one has wood but it needs matchsticks. So what they'll do is they'll exchange, right? One will give the wood to the other and the other will give matches, right? So basically that's barter trade, right? Exchanging goods for goods. So what were the limitations of this type of trading? So there are a number of limitations that are associated with barter trade. The first is it is difficult to value goods that a person needs to exchange with the other goods. So it was difficult to actually value, right? Because what you're saying is you're exchanging unlike for like, right? For example, what happens if I need a small portion, right? A small portion. For example, what's happening is that I wanted a bag of maize, right? Bag of maize, while the other one has a kettle. So how are you going to value this, right? Is the bag of maize equal to the to the kettle, right? So valuing of these was hard in such a case, right? So there's need to have a double coincidence of what, right? So you definitely had to have a double coincidence, right? Meaning one lacks another thing. For example, in this case, one did not have matchsticks, but he had wood, while the others wanted wood but did have matchsticks. So had to have one person liking the other, which the other wants, right? So it was supposed to be a double coincidence. What happens if I had all matchsticks and I had the matchsticks and the wood? Right? I want matchsticks. What am I going to exchange for? Because already I have the wood. So you had to have double coincidence of want, right? Double coincidence of want. Another thing is that there might be a problem of divisibility. how are you going to what? Divide, right? Same thing of, for example, the cattle. So you had one bag of maize. I have a cattle, right? Am I going to kill it and give you part that is actually corresponding to one bag, right? So it was hard to devise, right? To actually correspond with whatever you are getting, right? That's to do with a problem of divisibility. There are likely to be problems of transferability, right? It meant that I had to actually what? Send the item to wherever the person was, right? So if I was in Lilongwe for the meantime, I'm from Blantyre, I wanted something. That means it meant that if I found somebody, right, it meant that I had to send something from Blantyre so that I buy my stuff. So because of that, that transferability was also a problem, right? Because it needs what? Transfer of actual goods. And lastly, it made it difficult for international trade. The same thing with transferability, right? We cannot trade. It meant that we had to transfer all the items. So international trade was not working. That's why money came in as a medium of exchange, right? To actually solve all the problems. So if you can see these limitations, money are actually, most of them money is actually saving, right? For example, international trade. I can easily send money using PayPal, my bank, right? And buy something from China, right? Buy something from China. Transferability meant that I can easily transfer money from Airtel Money and buy something from elsewhere, right? It's possible. The divisibility, it meant that it's possible to say that, all right, this, I have 100,000, right? I have 100,000, but I've only bought, let's say, 2 bags of maize worth 25,000. I can now send only 25,000. I'm not forced to send the whole 100,000, right? Because money is divisible in such a way. There's no need now for double coincidence because what I can provide to other person is money, right? That money he can buy whatever he wants, right? It doesn't have to be that I need matchsticks, the other needs the wood. So that means we all can exchange, but I can have money. I need matchsticks. I'll give him the money, right? Even though I do not have wood, he can take the money and look for wood somewhere else, right? So there's no need for this double coincidence anymore. So you can see that the medium of money actually came to actually rectify all this limitation that was there with barter trade. And that's to do with exchange value or exchange, right? So exchange is only coming in because goods or services are scarce, are not readily available, right? So because these are not readily available, there is this value that is attached to the exchange. It's not, you're not exchanging for free, but there is a value that is exchanged. So if somebody asked what is exchange value, then it could be defined as the value attached to a good that is being exchanged, right? Because they are scarce, something like that, right? They wouldn't ask you what is exchange, but it's all about playing around with these words, right? There's no actual definition, but we're telling that this economic value or this exchange value is only arising because goods are scarce. Then the moment that you are actually exchanging one item for the other, there's going to be a value attached for it. You're not going to do it for free. You're not going to give one item to other, right? For free because they are scarce. Now let's look at the concept of specialization and division of labor. Another thing to do with economics, right? So let's look at the concept of specialization before we look at division of labor. So specialization actually occurs when an individual actually makes a single type of products or provides a single type of service. So you have actually mastered the production of one product or the provision of one service. So you are called a specialist, right? Specialization. Instead of being a jack of all trade, you are a master of one, right? You have mastered everything to do with that production, that specialization. So, in other words, it can be described as the concentration of resources in a narrow range of product as opposed to a broader range of products or services. So basically, what you're saying, your focus, your resources are actually being diverted to one product or service. That's to do with specialization. So the question is, why is this specialization coming in, right? So it meant that because you cannot have all the resources, right? Whatever resources that you have, you're actually focusing on doing one item. For example, maybe in Malawi, because we cannot grow every other crop, right? For example, we can't grow apples in Malawi. So because of that, we are actually specializing in items that we actually can do. So we basically focusing or diverting all our concentration, for example, in tobacco and something like that. So that's specialization where you're actually focusing on one product or one service, right? That's basically to do with specialization. While the concept of divisional labor is actually linked to specialization, right? It's actually linked to specialization. So this is the type of specialization. This is a type of specialization is division of labor, right? A type of specialization is called division of labor, right? So this type of it's a sort of specialization, but in terms of division of labor. So instead of saying that I'm focusing on a whole product, but you're actually focusing on a small specific task, right? So it involves the splitting of production process into a number of individual operations, making each operations special task for workers. So for example, Casbek Malawi, maybe we might say that they are specialists in soft drinks, right? Soft drinks. Right? They are specialists in sport. So they are specialists. They're not doing everything. So like they are doing a lot of items, soap, water. No, they are specialists in soft drinks. Right? So they know they have diverted all their concentration in making soft drinks. Their resources, their energy. But division labor is sort of a, a specialization as well that looks at the focusing on one particular operation. So in Castell, Malawi, there are a lot of operations that are involved in running this business. So you have the accounts, production, the what. So you have a person that only has knowledge and skill and is a specialist in maybe the accounts. That's the accountant, the production, maybe the engineers and whatnot. So if you are focusing on a particular part of an operation, that's division of labor. When you are focusing on a production of a particular product or service, that's sort of a general specialization that we're talking about. But division of labor is basically a type of specialization that focuses on one part or one or two parts of a production process, right? A production process or operations. So basically, that's to do with division of labor. So specialization can be categorized as follows, right? Individual specialization. You can look at national specialization. You can look at geographical specialization. So these are the categorizations of specialization. First, let's look at individual specialization. So this is where an individual concentrates on a single type of work. A carpenter, right? Carpenter actually focuses on carpentry. So he knows everything to do with the carpentry. He's an individual. He's actually focusing on that, right? An engineer. So he's a specialist in he do with engineering, right? An accountant, right? That's individual specialization. Where an individual concentrate on a single type of work. While national specialization occurs when a different nation focuses greatly on the production of a particular good or service efficiently in order to achieve economies of scale. So instead of doing all the items, what you're doing is you are focusing on one or two items, right, to achieve economies of scales. Right? For example, the production of tobacco. That means if we produce a lot of tobacco, we might enjoy economies of scale. Maybe the term economies of scale might be new. But when you're talking about economies of scale, we're just saying that the benefit that arises from mass production. Mass production. So the benefits coming from producing a lot of stuff. One item, for example, for producing of a lot of stuff is that maybe you can get discounts from what? Discounts from products, right? When you are actually buying your raw material, you get what? A discount. That's an economy of scale. So this is basically a benefit that is arising from mass production. So because you are specializing in one product or service in an efficient manner, you can achieve this economy of scale. So instead of producing something at a higher price, right, you'll be producing at a lower price because you are specialized. You have specialized. So that's basically economies of scale. That is why when you are buying stuff in bulk, you get a larger discount than you are buying something on retail, right? So you're achieving these economies of scales because you are doing stuff in bulk or in large numbers, right? So basically, country is now focusing on the production of one good or services, right? So for them to actually achieve these economies of scales. So this kind of specialization arises from the availability of raw materials, availability of market, etc. So that is why we're saying that in Malawi, you focus on tobacco. That's what we do best, right? We have the market for it. We have maybe the raw material. Our land actually suits the production of tobacco, right? So because of that, we as a nation have decided to cultivate tobacco. We cannot cultivate maybe other stuff because maybe our land does not, right? But we have chose something that we are efficient and effective at, right? So basically, that's national specialization, where a particular country has chosen the production of a single product or service to achieve economies of scale. Now, when it comes to geographical specialization, this is a type of specialization that takes place when resources are concentrated in a particular geographical location, right? So you are forced to do something just because that geographical location is actually has or is concentrated with that type of resource. For example, if you cannot, for example, Arab Emirates like Dubai, right? They have a lot of oil, right? So a lot of oil. So because of that, that area, right? They can be doing a lot of oil refinery or oil mining, right? Just because that particular area or that particular geographical location has concentration of that resource. So because of that, you now take advantage of that and actually to focus on that particular item. Now, finishing up, we'll look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of specialization. So first, let's look at some of the advantages. The first thing of specialization is that the increased efficiency in production and therefore can lead to greater output from the economy as a whole. Why? You have already mastered something, right? So, do you know that if you master something, you are more efficient? You do it faster, right? For example, you master the production of uh, for example, of beds, right? Initially, it will take you maybe a whole month to produce a bed. But because over time you have started to master it, it takes you two. That's being what? Efficient. You have increased your efficiency in the production of that. So that's the first one advantage, right? Because over time you have actually get more skills and it's just in your blood, right? You become more efficient. That's the first one, increased efficiency. The second thing is repetition of tasks leads to increased skill. Other thing is that because you're doing the task oftenly, you become more skillful in that area, right? You become more skillful. A master, right? A master of something, right? A master of something. So you become more skilled. That's why when you're a specialist in something, you are valued, right? Because you are a master, right? you are a master. For example, there's the Dr. Kambazaza is not, right? Is, I think, a doctor post-mortem, right? Assessing what was the cause of death of somebody, right? So he's well known, right, in Malawi because he mastered that, right? He is a doctor, but because he mastered in that particular field, he has actually increased his skills, and he can uh, with high degree and precision, be able to identify the real cause of death, right? That's because of repetition, doing something over and over again, right? Practice makes perfect. So because you're doing it over and over, you become more skilled, right? Another thing is that specialization in production is often associated with mechanization, right? Mechanization, which in turn leads to faster production, right? So you're specialized. Now you become to using machines and whatnot. So because of that, everything becomes more fast because you specialized, right? You specialized because you have a particular machine that does what you do, right? You're not doing everything. So you have a machine that actually is doing that particular task, right? Another thing is that nations and households have the freedom to select the work they like. That's basically it. I can pursue accounting. I can pursue engineering. I can pursue. So I'm doing something that I like, something that I love, right? I'm not forced to do everything, right? To do everything. I'm actually doing what I love, right? In primary school, we were forced to do everything, right? Math, English, yeah. In college, maybe in something, in secondary school, when you go to college, you now start to actually now see what am I supposed to what do, right? Doing what particular area, then focusing as you go, you're now going deeper and deeper in something that you like. You're not forced to do everything. If I want to do football, play football as a career, then I'll do something to do with football. I'll be a coach. I'll be a footballer, right? So I'm doing something that I like, right? Same applies to nations, right? They'll do something that they feel like they're good at, right? So because of that, this will increase output and efficiency. So basically, those are the advantages of specialization. Well, when it comes to disadvantages of specialization, this can lead to decline in craftsmen in the way that the workers use machines compared to one's own talent. So because of specialization, we have said that things become more mechanized, right? So it's more mechanized. So because of that, then it means that people start to lose skill because now the machines are doing everything for them, right? Instead of doing it by hand, the craftsman is lost, declines, right? Everything is now automated, right? So that's one disadvantage. Second thing is that increased unemployment in an economy, right? Why is this arising? It's because things are now adapting to technology, mechanization, right? Things that we're doing oftenly, you have now that, okay, this task is repeated, right? Let's have a sort of an automation, or let's have a system, let's have a robot do it for us. Because of that, there is loss of jobs to many people. And now comes artificial intelligence, which is actually uh, the talk of town, right? Is actually doing a lot of stuff. So this might also increase unemployment in the near future. Another thing is that there's a lot of inflexibility in sense that workers cannot cover their colleagues' work in case of another field, right? So what we're saying is because you are a specialist in one, you cannot do somebody's work. Because you are a specialist in one particular area, you cannot do something else. Right? So for example, it's a production process. Iweyo unabanga master something happened in stage one. Iweyo basi ndizimenezo assembly. Wangobanga combine ichi ndichi. That's stage two. That was stage two akangoro adwala. Right? You cannot replace him, right? Because you're not a specialist to them. So because of that, that and creates this inflexibility, right? So there's a lot of in flexibility that you cannot cover a friend's work. Leads to boredom because of carrying repetitive operations. You are doing everything every time. It becomes boring, right? It becomes boring. So you need that variety, that challenge, right? That has to come there to remove this boredom. So that if you keep on doing the same thing, a routine, right? There's nothing that you have to use your head. It's just a routine. It becomes more boring. And lastly, can lead to major holdups in production process. Once problem has occurred in one sector, it will affect the whole system because it is dependent on the other. Because one stage is dependent on the other. If one stage is not working, specialist, nobody can come there. It means everything will not work. Everything will not work. Imagine if there was no specialization, it meant that one could cover, that means everything would move smoothly. But if stage one, the specialist is not there, it meant that stage two will not continue because stage one things have not come, right? Step three will not. So because of that, there will be that delay, right? So basically, those are the disadvantages, right? Decline in craftsmen or skill, right? Because of this mechanizations, right? I think increased unemployment because we're using a lot of machines, technologies, right? You're actually replacing people, right? You cannot, it's less flexible because one cannot actually do somebody's work, right? In an area that he's not aware of. Creates boredom because of repetition. And lastly, it can actually disrupt operation if one stage or one sector actually faces problems. Those are the disadvantages. And let's look at adverse impacts or limitations of division of labor. That's just one item there. So that's the item, right? The impact of a division of labor is that the extent of the market, e.g., the post office, right, is situated in a remote area. It would not be effective to assign each task to different people, right? So what we're saying is, because we are actually saying that we are dividing the labor, right? We're dividing the labor. If an item is actually at a remote area, not closer, right? It means that the best way to do this is to make sure that you actually what? The person actually knows a number of stuff, right? Because if we are going to say that this person will be assigned one task, then it won't work. It would mean that a lot of people have to actually be available at this remote area. So because of that, what happened is that one person would usually know a number of tasks, right? So division of labor in that area would not work, right? So that's basically to do with the adverse of division of labor. And that's wrap the end of chapter 1. Thank you.